Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
In each episode, we'll discuss a different unsolved case. We'll examine the details, highlight potential leads, and strive to spark new interests that may help advance the investigation. Our goal is to reignite hope and ultimately bring justice where it's long overdue.
But this podcast is about more than just a conversation. It's about building a community of like-minded individuals who share a common purpose, making a real difference in the fight for justice. Whether you're a seasoned true crime fan or new to the genre, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery and advocacy.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
We discuss topics that may be sensitive to listeners. Discretion is advised. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And it is spooky season. The fall temperatures are here in Texas. 80s, I'll take it.
That is a decrease from your 115 you're having. So yes, 80s is definitely fall weather. Pull out the hoodies.
Yes, that's the first thing I did this morning was like, it's in the 70s before the sun is up. We're wearing a hoodie for school drop off.
Ah, love it. Love it. It's coming and we're going to be excited and then it's going to be cold.
Speaking of fall, we are going to I want to say like the most beautiful region of America.
In the fall. I was like, in the fall. Because I don't want to be there during the winter. I would freeze my butt off.
No, we will be up in the Berkshires in North Adams, Massachusetts in October 12th weekend. The 14th. It's the 14th. October 14th weekend. We will be up there for our friend Josh from True Crime Bullshit. He's launching his studio up there, and we are going to go hang out, spend some time, see some pretty leaves.
Yes, it's going to be amazing. We get to bring sweaters and pants.
Whoa. I haven't worn pants on the regular, like outside of for photos, in probably a year and a half.
Yep. Nobody needs pants when you live in the South.
That's right. If you want to go.
We are looking forward to this. If you want to go, there are tickets for sale, and that website is Whitney.
bothand.fyi/launch.
Perfect. Get your tickets and come see some amazing podcasters and see Josh's new space.
New digs.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
So I guess we're just going to jump into this week's case.
We're in the cheese state.
We are.
Is that what it is really called? The cheese state?
I found a different name for it, a couple of names, and I was actually shocked about one. So I had to Google it to make sure it was legit. And it was. So
okay,
you will find out what that name is shortly.
Excited.
Nothing screams innocence like a small child who wants nothing more than to take a special treat to their classmates. A child asking their parents to make that trip to the store and debating heavily on which type of snack to bring. It came with as much anxiety as grown adults make a life-changing decision. But the smile on the kiddo's face as they passed out their items to their friends is a feeling most won't forget for a long while. But in today's story, 7-year-old Alexis would pick out that treat alongside her mother at the local grocery store. but she would disappear before ever getting the honor of passing it out to her peers. This week, we are navigating advocacy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the disappearance of Alexis Patterson. Nestled along the western shore of Lake Michigan, Milwaukee, often referred to as the Cream City due to the cream-colored bricks on its historic buildings, has a unique charm that sets it apart from other Midwestern cities. One could spend days wandering the vibrant streets of Milwaukee. This is something Whitney and I love to do. Walking the street of a random city is the best way to learn about the vibe of that particular place. Milwaukee is a place to hear the sounds of live music from numerous bars and clubs lining Water Street, especially on summer evenings. Milwaukee is also known as the city of festivals. Summer brings the lively Summerfest, which is the world's largest music festival. It's by the lakefront, and they essentially transform it into a colossal stage, and music fills the air for 11 days straight. Locals and visitors sway to rock, pop, and folk rhythms while indulging in Milwaukee's famous beer and culinary delights. Of course, this is a totally different scene in the winter. The city gets covered in snow, and the few times that I have been to Milwaukee, it happened to be in the winter, so these outdoor activities were slightly limited. The part that I did not think was true was the world's largest music festival, because I know how large some of these music festivals get, and I'm like, there's no way Milwaukee hosts this. But it does. Summerfest is huge.
I was going to express my concern that you were lying to me in regards to this, just because I live in Austin, Texas, which is the live music capital of at least Texas. We have ACL. There is a music festival every stinking weekend here. So, and then you've got New Orleans, you've got Nashville. Milwaukee was not even in my top 5 lists of music festival possibilities.
Agreed.
I'm thinking Woodstock in California, like all the other things. Milwaukee was not there.
What is
Probably
that
not
one
even the
that
top 10?
What is that one that they just had that all the people got trapped in because of the flooding?
Burning Man.
Burning Man. I'm like, that looked humongous. Yes, it was in the middle of nowhere, but still, I was shocked.
They have to have it in the middle of nowhere because so many people go.
Exactly.
So the fact that Milwaukee is hosting it, I'm
shocked
by this.
Yes. As far as the crime in Milwaukee goes, in recent times, murder and human trafficking cases are up, while rape, aggravated assault, and robberies are down. With a crime rate that is 60 per 1,000 residents, Milwaukee stands as one of America's cities grappling with high rate of crime. Here, the odds of encountering either a violent crime or a property crime are insane, with a likelihood of 1 in 17. Alarming as it may be, research conducted by Neighborhood Scout stated Milwaukee is among the top 100 most dangerous cities in the whole United States. Which is, yes, I can see that it has its crime, but it's Milwaukee. Midwest cities, I can't fathom have that much crime. I don't know why.
Because you think of the typical, like stereotypical Midwesterner. They're funny accents, they're kind, they're just like a slower vibe of a human being. They're just very
go to work
mentality.
Yeah, just do their thing. But apparently I am wrong. That stigma, I hope after 3 years of doing this podcast, it would change and be like, Melissa, you don't know what good places offer.
Clearly, we don't know anymore.
We don't know. But let's go back to 2002. Milwaukee was seeing a decline in homicides. However, 12 youths were accused of beating a handyman to death that year. It was also the year that Alexis Patterson vanished on her way to school. Alexis was born on April 4th, 1995, to parents Ayanna Patterson and Kenya Campbell. Kenya and Ayanna's relationship didn't last very long. There was a pretty distinct age gap. I believe Ayanna was 16, while Kenya was in his 20s. Then Ayanna would marry a man named Laurent Bouguereau, and he became a father figure and stepfather to Alexis. She was a first grader at High Mount Community School, and this school was very close to her home. We are talking within the line of sight. If you looked out the window or stepped in the front yard, you could see the school. A few hundred steps at most. But here's what went down that morning. Alexis was supposed to take cupcakes to her classmates that day. It was a Friday and snack day, and Alexis and her mom had went to the store to purchase these sweet treats the night before. However, that morning, Alexis's mom went to sign her daughter's homework folder, just as she did every other school day, when she noticed that the nightly homework was not completed. So she hollers over to Alexis to ask her about it, and in true elementary age kid style, she avoided answering at first, and then eventually came clean that she just didn't finish it. And as her punishment, her mother told her that she was not allowed to bring her snack. Of course, this upset this little 7-year-old, but that's what punishments are supposed to do. It's supposed to hold people accountable. Ayanna stated her daughter was upset, but it really wasn't that big a deal. And she got on to her, told her the punishment. Yes, Alexis was mad, but they moved on with their day. And Alexis had gotten in more trouble a few days earlier for apparently talking to a stranger. So the mother was comparing this to that, and she was saying talking to a stranger got her in so much more trouble than this not doing homework.
As the parent of a current 7-year-old, the punishment of not being able to bring a snack with you seems very severe. I know that everyone's really like it's that big of a deal, but and Melissa knows this better than anyone, my 7-year-old is constantly eating. So the fact that I'm like, sorry, you can't take your snack with you would be like asking him to pull weeds for 7 hours. It's the same level of severity in a 7-year-old's mind.
Agreed. And if this was not just her snack, this was a snack she was going to pass out to all of her classmates as well. This was very special that she was going to get to do this. I don't know if this was assigned or just like everyone could bring in a snack on Friday, because then it would be even worse. This wouldn't be my go-to parenting tactic, that's for sure. School is separate usually from home stuff. I'd be like, okay. And natural consequences, usually I am a bit more believer in, but to each their own. This was a while ago, so parenting was very different.
True, but I don't see any parent punishing an entire class. So I would assume that this was more of a treat that she was going to, a surprise for the classroom, because no parent's going to be like, I'm going to punish all of these kids in this class because you made a poor decision. It's going to just be you that has to face those consequences.
That's where my mind would go as well. So usually Alexis would walk herself to school, considering how close it is. Yes, I know we would never allow this, even though you could see the school. She is a first grader. However, you'll learn about the family dynamics soon, and this is not out of the norm for this type of family.
Yeah, and different times.
Yes.
Times. If I would have lived in town as a 7-year-old first grader, I probably would have walked to school too, because that's just how it was then.
Yes, much different. She would normally walk herself to school, but on this particular day, her stepdad, Laurent, decided to walk her. I don't know if he was trying to calm her down, like smooth things over because she wasn't allowed to take the treats to school, but he ended up walking her that day. He stated he handed her off when they got to the crossing guard, and then he made his way home. Now, after researching this, case, the crossing guard wasn't like an adult that's paid for this. Here in Florida, we have crossing guards. That's a position you get paid for. This was a fifth, sixth grader that their job was to like help the kids right there, which I've seen that as well. So this is not a grown adult that remembers Alexis coming across the street or right there. It's not like that. It's a child as well. Because researching this case the whole time, I'm like, well, just ask the crossing guard, did that really happen? And then bam, then we know the stepdad didn't do anything. But that could not be confirmed. In the recent reports, teachers at the High Mount Community School in Milwaukee said that they never saw her or her stepfather near or on school grounds that day. Like there's no evidence that she ever made it to school. So the parents go about their day like normal because they state they believe she's at school. But when 3 p.m. rolls around and Ayanna was looking out the window waiting for her beautiful daughter to return home, she started to get a sinking feeling in her gut. Alexis was meticulous about coming home every day at a certain time. She would be strolling in each and every day between 2:50 and 2:55, no later. That's how long it took for this first grader to walk a couple hundred feet to her house. So at 3 p.m. and no Alexis, her mom became concerned. So she runs over to the school and asks, like, probably the first teacher that she sees that maybe she recognizes, and asks her where Alexis is at. And this is when she learns that Alexis never made it to school that day. Ayanna said she lost it right there. She does manage to call police, and the search starts. Alexis was a happy child. You can take one look at the many photos of her out in the internet and tell so much about her. She literally smiled with her whole face. She loved music, dancing, and singing. She was shy when you first met her, but would soon warm up to people. She went by the name Lexi and Pie with her family because everyone said she was sweet as pie. She had a scar under her right eye from a time she thought she can fly off the couch. Unfortunately, she hit the coffee table and learned that lesson. She had a baby sister that was only 6 months old when she vanished. So she never got the chance to be a real big sister like she always wanted to be. So many volunteers came out to help find this little girl. Flyers were put literally on all signs, bulletin boards, stores, anywhere with a flat surface, a flyer was being put up. Helicopters were in the air, and more than 40 law enforcement officers were going door to door in the neighborhood looking for anything that might lead them to Alexis. After a week and still no sign of her, 100 volunteers wearing shirts that said Operation LAP, which meant Locate Alexis Patterson, combed through even more areas. Still no trace of this first grader. On May 11th, Alexis's case was on America's Most Wanted, which brought in a few more tips, but nothing that was solid and led to where Alexis was at. Ayanna and LaRon weren't brought into the station right away, which is unusual when it comes to a child going missing. Law enforcement typically look at the family members first. They rule them out, then move on to other leads. However, when they finally did get brought in, during the lengthy interview, LaRon agrees to take a polygraph test. And he apparently completely fails it. However, once this news started hitting media, he comes out and says that he passed it and the media is wrong. One thing I did learn about this, I don't know if it's just Milwaukee or if it's Wisconsin. Law enforcement is not allowed to release the outcome of a polygraph test. which I didn't know that. I don't know if that's just here, but they weren't allowed to release it. So they've never commented on it. However, local media said they had a source that they are not willing to name that came out and said that he completely failed it, every single question, all the way. And then once that started coming out, he goes to media and saying, no, I passed it. I don't know what they're talking about.
So either there is a leak somewhere in the police department that said this is what the report said, or the media just made it up to create drama and headlines.
Exactly. And people have ran with this. It is in 90% of the articles from 2002 until now that he failed this test. Okay, but we also know that that's not admissible in court. It's really a non-thing. They just do it to push along their theories, and then they could use it against them and hope that they'll confess based on that. So you might know the name Elizabeth Smart. Well, she was kidnapped just over a month after Alexis. But the country would only hear about the little white girl who went missing and barely anything about the 7-year-old who vanished without a trace. Elizabeth Smart's case made national news. It was all over the place, while Alexis's case did not get outside of Wisconsin. I'm sure it made some news around other rural areas of Wisconsin, just not outside of that. And this has been scrutinized a lot. There's actually quite a few articles about, hey, these two little girls go missing relatively the same time. Why is one publicized, one is not? I don't know a lot about Alexis Smart, but she was kidnapped at gunpoint from a stranger. So they said that is a reason why, if they know that it could be someone crazy on the loose kidnapping children, then there's more of a cause of panic. We can believe what we want. I believe that in some realms, but Alexis was a Black little girl who did not come from a great family, didn't have the money. Her family was in trouble with the law quite frequently. So it just goes to show like why one case gets so much attention and why not hers. But finally, on May 13th, this case was reclassified as a criminal investigation. Do you know how much that can mess things up in the beginning if they're not even putting the resources in there for a criminal investigation?
It changes everything. It changes the procedure of things, the timeline of things, like you said, the resources. It changes all of it. What was it classified as? She's a first grade runaway?
Yep. They believe she ran away because of the fight argument about the snacks.
How far can a 7-year-old get when a runaway? Okay, I ran away probably 400 times when I was a kid, but it was like down the hill for an hour. Then I'd get hungry and come home. It's not.
Yeah.
A 7-year-old's not running away.
They don't have the complexity of their brain to even formulate that. And then she just vanished. She's so good at running away at 7. Hundreds of people cannot find her. Not a trace. Yeah. She's like
her
vanished.
Survival skills are that.
Yeah. Bear Grylls. They're Bear Grylls right there.
Oh my God.
I know. So frustrating. So yeah, they originally classified this as a runaway until most leads and tips that were coming in were pointing directly to the family. According to USA Today, every tip we had came back to that family, and it became apparent that something tragically went wrong in that house. This was stated by Steve Spingola. He is a retired homicide lieutenant who actually worked this case. This family and law enforcement had a dark past, to say the least. LaRon was involved in a bank robbery. He was the getaway driver during this robbery in 1994. This is prior to marrying Ayanna. And in this crime, a police officer was killed. Authorities didn't have much as far as evidence was concerned against LaRon and the guy that actually committed the robbery and the murder. They knew LaRon's name and the actual bank robber's name because they got a tip, and this tip told them exactly the amount of money that was stolen. And only the bank robbery would know this. So they knew who did it. They just couldn't prove it. So after a few months, nothing really happening with literally the murder of a police officer, they decided to give LaRon a deal for full immunity if he would turn on his partner. And shockingly, he did. So LaRon was set free, no punishment whatsoever. And the other guy really was convicted for those crimes. Many people believe he got away with the bank robbery and being an accessory to murder of a cop. And to say that some people were angry was an understatement.
I feel like this full immunity deal, that those don't happen often. You see it in TV, like movies, and yes, people request it, but they're like, listen, we're not going to give you immunity, but you'll get, a few months or a year, whatever, plus probation. But to get full immunity, those don't come along very often.
Agreed. And I think if it hadn't been for the murder of a cop, I definitely don't think they would have done it for the bank robbery, because who really cares? But because the city was hell-bent on making someone pay for the murder of one of their own, they were willing to do anything. It was only had been a couple of months. You think they could have tried to gather a little bit more evidence before then. But maybe they thought this guy was a danger to society, and they're like, let's figure out a way to get him out of the equation, and they just had to get LaRon on board.
Definitely could be.
So LaRon had been in and out of jail for selling drugs and unpaid child support all of his life. Now, Alexis's biological father, he really wasn't a part of her life, and he was also in and out of prison for various drug-related charges. I believe both of them were drug dealers, and they not just consuming it, but they were also selling it at high levels. So this is in the future, but like I said, Kenya, the biological father, he was in and out of jail for drug charges like most of his life. However, he would end up, this is years after Alexis went missing, he was arrested and convicted of beating his 8-month-old daughter almost to death. Medical professionals were shocked that she lived for how extensive her injuries were.
Wow.
Yeah. So of course you hear that and you're like, oh my God, he could be connected. This guy obviously has no problem beating children. So has he ever been looked into? Well, turns out he was in jail the day that Alexis went missing. So he pretty much has a rock solid alibi there.
Yeah, that one you're not going to be able to gloss over easily.
Exactly. So as you can see, this family has a dark past. They're involved in a lot of illegal activities, and they could have many enemies. There were reports from Mayana that a letter came home from Alexis's school a few weeks before she went missing. And this letter stated that a child in the area was almost abducted, and parents should be on high alert because of this. After some more research, it ended up that this letter was sent home about a year and a half before Alexis ever vanished. So this did not come into play at all. And I'm sure with all of the commotion and craziness surrounding that first few weeks, Ayana just mistakenly thought it was more recent than what it actually was. Every time you're going to hear more things that come up and you're like, okay, here we go. We've got this. But then it just turns out to be nothing. Another strange thing that was happening at the school and was reported to police by some of Alexis's classmates was that they saw a suspicious red truck parked near the school for most of the week before her disappearance. However, this person supposedly never dropped anyone off or picked anyone up. It was just parked there. What is crazier is that this truck and the driver suddenly stopped showing up after Alexis vanished. The driver and the vehicle have never been identified. I always wonder about this because it could be just a one-off crazy thing that people took notice to, but then it also could mean something.
Do you ever think about this when you're driving through your neighborhood and worker vehicles, like contractor style vehicles. I feel that now more than ever, I'm hyper, and it's probably because of the line of work we do, but I'm hyper vigilant about what vehicles are in my neighborhood. Like, why is
Oh,
AT&T here again? Even though like my neighborhood's still being developed. Or why is there an AT&T vehicle here? Why is there a Google Fiber? Why I have questions about all of these vans.
same. It's not even my neighborhood. If something looks suspicious, I'm like, what the heck is going on? I may snap a picture. Take yesterday in the evening, driving my son to martial arts. There was a car parked over on the grass, like on the other side of a sidewalk. There is a pond back there. So I'm like, what's happening there? Why is that car there? And my son's like, chill out. They're probably fishing. Little,
Or dumping a body.
yes. And they're like, you thought something bad was happening, didn't you? And I'm like, that's where my mind goes first. And then good thing 99.9% of the time I am proved wrong.
We just, that's the world we live in, is that we try to gloss over the things that we hope. We try to be the optimist that, yes, this is a good thing, but my mind's always going to go to worst case scenario.
Exactly. Exactly. There is so much to this case, and the podcast Unsolved has a super deep dive, multiple part. I think it's actually a whole season. It's season 4, by the way, if you want to go listen to it. It pretty much goes in detail, every theory. They also received almost the entire case file. And if you go over to listen to that, it's so good. She talks about a lot in there. And she said she waited for this case file or tried to request it and years and years. And finally, after she got lawyers involved, she was given a lot of it. And to say that this case file is huge would be an understatement. They said 2 complete, like tall filing cabinets, and that's before they went digital. So huge case file. Over the following few years, LaRon's violence against Ayanna escalated, and he was arrested on multiple occasions. One for beating her and threatening her with a knife because she wouldn't tell him who paged her. It was little things would make him snap, and eventually they would divorce.
Did they check to see if he had bipolar disorder?
I don't know. I think he was just an angry, violent man that was also a drug dealer, did some shady stuff his whole life.
Yikes.
A prisoner would tell authorities that Alexis was buried in Louisiana. So police go to Baton Rouge, try to investigate this, but again, they come up empty-handed. And then what looks like a solid lead initially was the fact that Alexis's name came up in the Nameless 44. And if you don't know what that is, the list of people Israel Keys looked up on his computer. So Israel Keys, a notorious serial killer that would bury kill kits around the United States in order to go back there one day and kill people. Absolute lunatic. So her name was on this list because he apparently had looked up her name on one of his computers before he was arrested, obviously. So at one point, a serial killer was a possible theory in what happened to Alexis. However, Josh Hallmark of True Crime Bullshit tells the podcast Unsolved his beliefs on why he does not think Keys is Alexis's killer. You could go over and listen to that season 4 again. But essentially, he says that Keys stated he wanted to stop killing children after the birth of his own daughter. This was about a year. This happened about a year after Keys' daughter was born. And the fact he believed that her name was on there because he did commit a murder on that particular day in Wisconsin. He doesn't believe that it was Alexis because that was really out of the MO for Keys. Keys would do it in rural areas, crimes of opportunity. This was broad daylight near a school with lots of people around. This isn't typically what Keys would do.
Don't believe, and I could be completely wrong, I don't think that children were his main focus either. He preferred older teenagers, plus I think Samantha Koenig was in her early 20s. So I don't think that he's looking for children.
Agreed. I believe there was one 12, 13-year-old young teenager, the one that was going down the river or something like that was floating. I have vague memories of that. Yes. But typically his victims were adults. But let's talk about some other theories in this case. Obviously, most of them revolve around LaRon being a drug dealer, and I can see how this would fuel the narrative. There were reports that he stole a large amount of drugs from his supplier, and this obviously made some people mad. So in retaliation, this person kidnaps Alexis. I don't know how the drug scene works, but to me, what is killing a kid going to accomplish to get your money? They're suddenly going to be like, okay, here's your money. Kidnapping, maybe, and holding for ransom until they do pay you. I could see that a little bit more. I don't know. Is that a thing? You just kill a family member because you're mad that they stole your money? But when you want your money back?
I would think if you are harboring is the word I'm looking for, harboring a grudge about not being paid back this money, you're not going to get rid of someone if you have any hope to get it.
Yeah. So maybe that's why LaRon wasn't killed and they took a family member to show they mean business and to better get the money. I don't know. It could happen. There were reports that Diana and Alexis were actually held at gunpoint at one time because of some drug deal gone wrong. Many reports stated that drugs were sold literally out of the home, and a supplier showed up at the house that morning for some reason. So you can only imagine the amount of people in and out if he's selling drugs out of the house, if that's where his deliveries are made, kind of thing. A lot is going on that could play a role into what happened to Alexis. At the end of an article written in 2023 by the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, it stated, someone had come forward and said several snitches who have been incarcerated with LaRon's drug suppliers claimed that this supplier had admitted to or implied that he kidnapped and killed Alexis. So obviously we have that other prisoner that says she's buried in Louisiana. Sometimes these prisoners just say things because they're bored out of their mind and they think they might get a deal. I am sure these police have been all over this case. Every lead that has come in, they have checked out, exhausted until they can't go any further. So sometimes I think prisoners, obviously, they're liars. Could this have been some type of accident that the family tried to cover up? Because apparently the morning of or the day before, someone from Alexis's home had called the hospital and said that they needed help. When the call was being transferred to the correct department, whoever it is hung up the phone. Police have never been able to figure out who made that call or why. Now, if Alexis's disappearance wasn't crazy enough, in 2016, a man came forward stating he believed his ex-wife was Alexis. And let me tell you how he came to believe this. So apparently this woman's name is Lisa, and Lisa and him were getting a divorce. And he went to good old Google to find some dirt on Lisa to help him gain custody of their child. Throughout their whole relationship, things were weird, to say the least, but he overlooked it because, he was in love and just didn't. But once he was out of love, he's like, I'm going to find out who she really is. So this Lisa lady, her life seemed unreal to this guy because she didn't have any pictures from when she was little. I believe 10 years old is the earliest picture she had. She said she moved around a lot and the pictures probably got lost in one of the moves. He one time found a bunch of identification cards that had her picture, but various other names on it. She never talked about her past. He would catch her in lies from the past if she did mention something. So apparently he's like, I'm going to do some digging and figure out who she really is in order to try to use that in their custody divorce situation. So he's looking through the internet and he finds an age progression picture of Alexis. And he swears that it's his ex-wife, Lisa. And even the picture of Alexis as a child, he says looks just like his daughter. So he gets all these pictures that he has of Lisa, sends them over to the authorities to have them start checking it out. But he also goes to media as well. He gives the police a few days, a week that he doesn't really hear back. So he's like, I'm just going straight to the media. And of course they pick it up like crazy. People are looking at these photos and yes, it definitely resembles Alexis. So much so that this Lisa lady has a scar under her right eye, just like Alexis did. She also has this strange bump on her pinky finger that Alexis had as well. And some type of third characteristic that the police have not revealed to the public, this lady apparently had that as well. So, of course, the family finds out.
This is giving me really weird chills and hope that we have now found her. But I also know what we do for a living and that we cover unsolved cases. So I'm super excited and vibrating almost. But at the same time, I'm I'm going to be disappointed in this. I'm going to be disappointed.
Yes, you are. So, of course, word is getting around town. It makes it the way to Ayana. And she's know my baby's alive, happing herself, especially after hearing about the bump on her finger and whatever this third characteristic is. She's like, this could be my daughter. My daughter could be coming home. DNA is sent in and it's not a match. It's not Alexis. The ex-husband, the one that initially reported this, he doesn't believe it at first. He's like, oh, there was some mishandling. He's still believing that this is Alexis. And they're like, this lady proved who she was. He may have been suspicious or made up the whole story about not knowing who she was. But police say without a doubt, even before the DNA came out, they're like, this lady proved who she was. And she was adamant that it was not her. She was telling media, I am not Alexis. And it was all the ex-husband. Very weird stuff. Nothing really happens with the case. There's after all of that, LaRon dies of a possible overdose in 2021, and Alexis Patterson is still missing. All of these things, you're like, okay, we're almost there. This is a solid lead, and then we're all just let down, and no one knows what happened to Alexis.
It was heartbreaking.
She was last seen wearing a red hooded jacket with a gray stripe on the sleeve, a purple shirt, light-colored blue jeans, and white Nike tennis shoes. She wore her hair in 2 braids pulled back into one ponytail and was carrying a pink Barbie book bag. We will be posting a bunch of pictures of Alexis on our social media because you will look at her face and her smile, and you just cannot help but want to find her. Anyone with information regarding the whereabouts or circumstances of the disappearance of Alexis Patterson may contact the Milwaukee Sheriff's Office at 414-278-4788. There is a $10,000 reward being offered for information leading to her recovery. You can also contact the Black and Missing Foundation confidential tip line. We will post that all to social media as well.
Wow.
I know. That was a ride. I know. A just crazy one.
It just keeps getting stranger out there in this world.
Agreed.
Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $5 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue to shed a light on the forgotten victims, untangle the webs of deceit, and examine the eerie coincidences that make these cases so compelling.
We believe that working together can affect change and create a world where victims are heard, justice is served, and communities are empowered to make a difference, no matter where or who they are.